It was a warm summer evening at the Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton in California. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the sprawling base as the sound of choppers echoed in the distance. For Sergeant Jake Iron Daniels, it was another evening spent in the company of his brothers and sisters in arms. A routine he'd grown accustomed to since his enlistment 5 years ago. Jake had earned the nickname Iron, not only because of his steely resolve, but also due to his reputation as a no-nonsense Marine. His stature was imposing, and his eyes were hard with a decade of military experience. His jaw was always tight, a habit from years of holding his emotions in check, even in the face of chaos. But despite his tough exterior, Jake was a loyal friend and a reliable comrade in arms. This particular evening, Jake was wrapping up some maintenance work on his M16 when a convoy of motorcycles roared into the base entrance. The rumble of the engines was unmistakable, and Jake's ears twitched in annoyance. Motorcycle gangs were a regular sight around the area, but these weren't just any bikers. These were the Iron Eagles, a notorious group that had been causing trouble in local towns for years. They were known for their reckless behavior, contempt for authority, and a particular animosity toward the military. They'd been involved in more than a few skirmishes with the police, and rumors had it that they had been targeting military personnel for fun. As the group of bikers parked in the base's parking lot, Jake raised an eyebrow. They were too close to the barracks. He stood up, stretched his long legs, and grabbed his jacket. He wasn't one to back down from a confrontation, but his instincts told him that this situation wasn't going to be as simple as a couple of drunks causing a scene. Jake made his way across the lot, his boots making firm, determined strides. The bikers, who had been unloading their gear and cracking open beers, noticed him almost immediately. He could see the sneers on their faces as they sized him up. They were used to intimidating anyone who crossed their path. But Jake wasn't the average man. One of the bikers, a tall man with a skull tattoo on his neck and a leather vest that read Viper on the back, stepped forward. He was clearly the leader of the pack. His dark sunglasses hid his eyes, but Jake could feel the man's gaze drilling into him. "Hey, Marine," Viper called out, his voice thick with sarcasm. "Isn't it past your bedtime? What's the matter? You got a problem with us being here?" Jake didn't flinch. He was already tired of the nonsense. "This is a Marine base, buddy," he said, his voice low and measured. "You're on military property and you don't have permission to be here. So, unless you've got business, you might want to turn around." Viper chuckled, taking a slow drag from his cigarette. "I don't take orders from a soldier like you, especially one in a uniform," he spat, flicking the cigarette to the ground. "In fact, why don't you take that fancy jacket of yours off, and let's see if you've got what it takes to handle a real fight." Jake's expression remained unchanged. "I don't want to fight you," he said quietly. "I just want you to leave." At that moment, a few of the other bikers began to gather around, sneering and cracking their knuckles. One of them, a stocky man with a bald head and a heavy-set build, called out from the back, "You think you can stop us? We've been taking on tougher guys than you for years, soldier." Jake didn't need to wait for the inevitable escalation. His training had taught him how to read situations like this. It was clear that these men weren't just looking for a fight, they were looking to make a statement. They thought they could bully him, intimidate him, and get away with it because he was just one man, a Marine. Viper took a step forward, his lips curling into a grin. "You sure you want to make this hard, Marine? We've got a whole crew, and we don't like your kind around here. You don't belong." Jake took a deep breath and then, without warning, lunged forward. His fist landed squarely on Viper's jaw, sending the man sprawling backward. The other bikers reacted instantly, pulling out chains and knives, ready to jump in. But Jake was faster. His years in the Marines had honed his reflexes to an almost supernatural level. He ducked a swinging chain from the bald biker, twisted his body to avoid a wild knife thrust, and with a swift motion, slammed the stocky man into the side of a nearby truck. The remaining bikers hesitated for just a split second, unsure of what they were up against. That hesitation was all Jake needed. He spun around and took out the nearest biker with a precise, quick kick to the gut, followed by a devastating elbow to the back of the head. The sound of the impact while the biker crumpled to the ground unconscious. Viper, now on his feet and clearly enraged, rushed at Jake with a switchblade in hand. He swung wildly, but Jake effortlessly dodged the attack. In one fluid motion, Jake grabbed Viper's wrist, twisted it, and forced the knife out of the man's hand. Without missing a beat, Jake used his opponent's momentum to slam him into the dirt, holding him there with a firm grip on his collar. "You want to mess with Marines?" Jake hissed. "You've picked the wrong soldier, pal." By now, the rest of the bikers had fallen back, some of them nursing bruises and wounds, others too stunned by the Marine's speed and strength to make a move. They had underestimated him, and now they were paying the price. Just as Jake was about to finish it, a shout came from the direction of the base entrance. "What the hell is going on here?" A uniformed MP military police arrived with two of his colleagues, guns drawn. Viper, realizing he was outnumbered, tried to scramble to his feet. "This Marine attacked us. He's out of control," he yelled, but his voice lacked the confidence it once had. Jake stood up slowly, brushing the dirt off his uniform. "I was just telling them to leave," he said, his voice calm and controlled. "I don't like bullies, and I don't tolerate disrespect." They were the ones who started it. The MPs took in the scene. Viper and his crew were clearly outmatched. The MP leader, Sergeant Harris, looked at Jake and nodded. "Good job, Daniels. We'll handle the rest," Harris said, motioning for the bikers to be detained. "You're free to go. This is on us now." Jake gave a brief nod, then turned to walk away. As he headed back to the barracks, he couldn't help but feel a small sense of pride. He hadn't asked for the fight, but he'd been ready for it. And now the Iron Eagles would think twice before messing with Marines again. As Jake entered the barracks and dropped onto his bunk, he heard a knock on the door. It was his platoon sergeant, Sergeant Major Roberts. "That was impressive out there, Daniels," Roberts said with a wry smile. "You've got a way of making problems disappear." Jake gave a small grin. "Just doing my job, sir." Sergeant Major Roberts looked at him with a glint of approval in his eyes. "Well, you did more than your job today. You sent a message. Don't mess with the Marines." Jake didn't say anything more. He had already made his point. The bikers had learned the hard way. You don't mess with the wrong soldier, especially one with the pride and discipline of a Marine. And as the night settled in at Camp Pendleton, Jake knew one thing for sure: the respect of his comrades was all he really needed. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone else.